Hey everyone, welcome to the first of a new series. I am doing full moon readings. I will be doing new moon readings as well. If you catch this later on YouTube or Rumble, the timestamps will be down below so that you can just skip ahead to whichever zodiac sign you want to check out. So let's just get into it. I'm making these short and sweet. So we're going to take a look at 2 cards for each zodiac sign. We'll be looking at just what needs to be released, and any kind of like spiritual advice or anything that the guides have to say for that particular sign. These are collective readings. Hey, how's it going? These are collective readings. So if you want a personal reading, if you want something more specific, I recommend booking a private reading with me, and you can find the information for that in my link in my bio. So without further ado, I'm going to go through the first 6 zodiac signs, and then once we get to the middle, if somebody is on and wants to get a free little mini reading that's personal for you, I'm going to do that, and then at the very end as well. So these are quick and short, so let's dive in. All right, Aries, we're going to start with you, Aries, and I'm going to be going in order, so just to kind of like keep it super organized in my mind. I know sometimes I have done it a different way. I'm feeling this card right here. So we're taking a look at what needs to be released, because the full moon, and the full moon is tomorrow, right? So the full moon is on January 6th, and it's at 4:09 p.m. Mountain Standard, so that's 1 hour earlier for Pacific. Adjust for your time zone. But yeah, we're having the full moon tomorrow. So why am I doing this today? I'm doing it today because I want to have this up in the morning for anyone who's looking for guidance. So from here, we're still waxing and we're still moving up to the full moon. So once we get to that full moon spot, it's like everything feels really pregnant with life. But right after the full moon, we're right into that waning phase, and we just really need to be letting go and releasing things. And I find that we're so focused on the new moon to the full moon. Why don't we get a little bit of information on what we're not looking at? So Aries, what are you maybe not necessarily seeing? What is kind of maybe a blind spot that you might need to be looking at for what would be beneficial to release in this full moon? Once we hit the full moon to the new moon phase, right? What can you, like toxic people, projects, whatever it is, what can you just kind of get rid of? And so what we have is the Queen of My World, and this is from an oracle deck that I really like that's about shadows. And usually this is actually pointing to what kinds of blockages would benefit us most from releasing, so that it releases a lot of energy and momentum so that we can move forward. Queen of My World, Aries, I'm thinking like, now these are meant to be provocative cards, so don't hate the messenger. This is really speaking to how you're kind of a little bit full of yourself, and you might want to check that and get a little bit humble about what you're up to in this world. So maybe you've had a conversation with a friend recently and you've been kind of like sitting up there looking down, and you need to kind of get off your high horse. Or maybe there's something like a project, or you're in the middle of like stepping into a new career. You need to get into that humble space and not necessarily be thinking like everything revolves around you and you're just like the queen of your world kind of a situation. So that's what I got for you. I know that might sting a little bit, but these are meant to kind of point to, again, what needs to be looked at, what can really help you progress if you can get rid of the extra energy, like unload the heaviness and just release it, right? What spiritual advice is actually coming through for you is the Strength card. Oh wait, is that the Strength card? Yes, it is the Strength card. I just want to make sure. So we have the Strength card that's coming through. And I really love this because the Strength card isn't just about being strong. Sorry, you guys, I'm going to put this on Do Not Disturb. Don't want to get interrupted here. So the thing that's really lovely about the Strength cards is not just about having strength, it's about the kind of inner strength that we gain from when we integrate our shadows. So I think it's actually really perfect for this kind of a reading. You see this maiden that's here with the lion. So she's befriended the beast. And what this is pointing to is our internal beast, our internal shadows. And when we really sit with them and integrate the lessons that they have for us, we're no longer being ruled by them, but they become an ally that walks by our side and gives us strength and gives us power and gives us courage to walk through the world. Because remember, the Strength card is also about that kind of courage and living from your heart space. So when you clear that shit out, you can really come from a place that's more authentic and more heart-centered. All right, Aries, so that's what I've got for you. We're moving on to, I've got my list here so that I don't forget anybody. So we're moving on to Taurus. Taurus, feeling this deck here. All right, so Taurus, actually I want this card. I'm feeling this card. Just gotta go with it, you know? When I'm told, I'm told. So, that's an interesting card. I actually think it's appropriate for a Taurus. All right, Taurus. And again, when I talk about these signs, like remember that we're talking about generalizations, you guys. And you can be watching this for your sun, moon, or rising sign, whether you're a tropical astrology person or a sidereal astrology person. So, Taurus, what do we have for you? What's the shadow that needs to be looked at? What do you need to be paying attention to work with, to release, and to let go from the full moon tomorrow all the way into the new moon? And I guess I'll just stop saying full moon tomorrow because some people might be watching this tomorrow morning. So let's just go with the full moon. So what we have here is peaceful amongst the thorns, right? So peaceful amongst the thorns, like this particular card is really speaking to like, you can't, like it's really beneficial for us to get into these places where we are, what is it that I want to say? Where we can get comfortable in discomfort, right? Like that is a spiritual practice for us to be able to be comfortable in discomfort, right? That's a meditative practice. And there are a lot of lessons to be learned in life around that. But there is something to be said for when you're really just putting up with all kinds of toxic shit in your life or discomfort because there are things that you are not dealing with that are just taking up a lot of your energy, where you could actually be perpetuating situations in your life that are not healthy for you, that are not good for you, because you're creating your world in a way where you're going to be okay with whatever happens no matter what happens, right? Does that make sense? I feel like what I'm trying to say, I'm like searching for the words for this. I think what I'm trying to say is when we come to a place of just allowing all the time and just being in flow all the time, which I know is a very spiritual and like community type of concept, and it has its benefits and it has its gifts and it has a place and time for that. When we're consistently in a place of flow and we're always just allowing things to happen, there is no drive, there is no controlling, and we just kind of spill and go everywhere in our life, and we allow for situations and people and things to happen. And there is something to be said for acceptance, but this is like when you've taken acceptance too far and you've just allowed a lot of toxicity to be in your world, right? So you want to just kind of step away from being from making things that are no longer serving us okay in our world anymore. So really just doing some inventory about what no longer suits, what no longer fits for you, right? And then it's interesting because we have the Eight of Pentacles in this particular deck. It's a very interesting deck. I like this deck. So we have the Eight of Pentacles that's showing up for your spiritual advice. And Eight of Pentacles, like honestly, I feel like, yes, it's about continuing to do like the work, continuing to hone our craft. So this could be for some of you having to do with work environments, with maybe your side hustle, maybe community friendships, like something like that. But whatever this applies to that you're dealing with in your life, just know that the Eight of Pentacles is showing up to say, hey, there's more work to really be done. There's more like internal growth and work that you could, that you can be focused on, right? So like the Eight of Pentacles is really paying attention to our path. Like what path are we going on? What iteration are we moving into next? How do we want to continue to grow? How do we want to continue to like hone our skills and move forward in life in that way, right? So I hope that makes sense for you, and I hope that resonates for you, Taurus. All right, Taurus. So we've done Taurus and we're moving on to Gemini. All right, so with Gemini, I'm going to stick with this shadow deck because I'm just kind of really feeling it. So, all right, Gemini. So I know that this is not the same background that you guys are used to seeing me with, but wow, that's interesting. You guys just saw me shuffling. Okay. So what is the spiritual advice that we have for Gemini? All right. Okay. I'm trying to remember what the Geminis actually had for their monthly reading for the month of January, which those are up, by the way, on YouTube, so you can find the link for that in my bio. But I think they might have gotten this card, I'm not sure. Anyway, so what's interesting is that we actually have the same card that's showing up for Gemini that was showing up for Taurus, right? So peaceful amongst the thorns, right? We have peaceful amongst the thorns. You know, and again, I just want to say that, like, there's a place and a time for acceptance, and then there is a time for us to, like, step outside. Like, I think that sometimes the other thing that I was going to say about this card is that we can get ourselves into a meditative state and not only become accepting and okay and flowing with life, but to the point where we're allowing for things that are negative or toxic in our life to, like, linger and to be here with us. But also, this can be a place where we hide. You know, a lot of times I've seen that, you know, through the spiritual community, through healthy food kind of communities, we can tend to, like, move into these places where we hide in these really healthy places with, like, yoga or meditation. We can use that as a shield to hide instead of it just being healthy, right? Like, anything that's positive can turn into something, like, a little bit toxic, and anything that's toxic, a little bit of that could actually be medicine, right? That's something that we know in herbalism. And so it's a very similar kind of thing, right? So where we have, like, this card is showing us that, like, yes, allowing and being in a state of meditation can really be a beautiful way to navigate the difficulties in our lives, and at the same time it can put us in a place of acceptance where we're accepting too many things, like the things that are not good, where we need to actually take action and be dealing with situations, right? I've known people in my life who have actually taken who've gone deep into meditation, and they're doing meditation every day for, like, you know, even hours a day, or yoga for hours a day, which, it's not to say meditation and yoga aren't healthy, right? It's just that when you use it as a place where you can go and take refuge in, to the point where you're avoiding dealing with things in life that actually need to be dealt with, that are creating problems because they're stacking up because we're not dealing with it, that's what actually happens here, right? So that's what we've got going on with this card. So the spiritual advice that's actually coming through that we have is the Two of Pentacles. So this is really just about paying attention to how you're balancing out the way that you're dealing with, you know, life. So if you're someone who is going into states of, like, meditation or spirituality, or doing plant medicine or microdosing or yoga or whatever it is, running, working out, right? Like, these are all really healthy things, but are you balancing how you are taking time to do that and also still dealing with some of the more mundane things in life that you maybe are stacking up that you need to be dealing with, right? So the Two of Pentacles really is about that kind of presence and awareness and balance, right? The waves are going to come, they're going to happen, and having methods where we can, like, work out or meditate or do yoga or whatever it is, those are all really helpful in helping us have a centered state and to be able to be grounded. We have to be able to also deal with the things that we don't want to deal with, you know, like go down to the courthouse and deal with a ticket if you have a ticket, or get on a phone call that, you know, with a company that you have to straighten something out, it's going to take an hour, deal with taxes, like whatever it is, there are things in life that need to be dealt with. So there has to be a balance between these things. And just thinking about one more thing I'll say about this before I move on to the next one is, with balance, think about whenever you are in a state of balance, it's not stationary. You're not just not moving, right? In order to keep your balance, you have to be able to be very aware and present and focused, usually on, like, a single point or a couple of different points that help you to keep your balance, right? So notice where you're putting your attention to have certain kinds of focal points, right? Notice where that is. Make sure that you're able to get into a state of presence and groundedness. Be present for your life, because in order to maintain balance and to be able to move between spaces, we have to be able to have that attention to life, to what's happening in the present moment, right? So that's what I've got for my Geminis. So we're blazing through these. So 3 more, and then whoever is on, I will actually be doing, if somebody wants to get a personal mini reading with me for a full moon reading, you're welcome to put that in the chat, and then whoever puts it in the chat first, that's who I'll be doing, and then I'm picking one more person at the end to do a free reading at the end as well. So that's just for people who just decide to pop in, join me, hang out, you know, thank you for hanging out, thank you for being here. So you're welcome to do that. All right, so we've got Cancer, Leo, and Virgo to go, and then we're doing a free reading for somebody. So let's get into Cancer. All right, Cancer. So, and this is for Cancer, Sun, Moon, or Rising, okay? Cancer, Sun, Moon, or Rising. And we're going to take a look at, again, this is because for the full moon on the 6th, from the full moon all the way through till the new moon, right? Like, so we're still waxing when I'm recording this. At the time of recording this, this is going to be up on YouTube and Rumble. So at the time of recording this, this is actually still waxing. We're still kind of like building to that really pregnant full moon energy. And I just wanted this to be up tomorrow so that people have it ready to watch for when we hit that full moon and from that release point. So the full moon into the new moon, right? So for my Cancers, we have the colorless angel as the shadow card, as like the release point. So that's what we're looking at. So, hey, how's it going? I haven't seen you in a minute. And let's take a look at some spiritual advice for what's coming up for the Cancers. So for Cancer, just to help you understand how to deal with this particular challenge that is coming up for this month for you, or for this lunation from full moon to new moon, right? So full moon to new moon, we're moving into that waning phase at right after that full moon peak. That's when it starts to kind of move into waning, right? I mean, I would say that the full moon energy stays pretty potent for like another day after, you know. So I would say today is so tomorrow's the 6th, so 6th, so I would say like till the 7th we might still feel like that kind of very pregnant full moon energy, and then we're moving into like that more waning kind of energy, right? But this is something to pay attention to for that particular period of time. So we have the colorless angel, and this is really just about like some of you out there, and again, this is a collective reading, so if it doesn't resonate with you, check out, and you're checking out your sun sign, check out your rising or your moon, or get a personal reading, right? Because that's always going to be the most specific instead of a generalized reading for everybody, because you can't catch everyone. So this is actually, some of you are out there are going to resonate with the fact that you've been feeling just kind of blah, like colorless, like when the color is drained out of your face, like maybe when you're sick and you have that pallor that's like really pale, and you know, some people who are like really lighter skin are almost kind of gray, right? Just like gaunt, like the energy has left your body, and just feeling like you're not feeling very much of that like vibrant kind of energy. Maybe you've been feeling like people have been draining your energy. Maybe you've just been doing too much and doing and not taking enough time to really like chill and regenerate for yourself to do the things that you need to do. If you have a lot of really strong like moon placements, or have a lot of like planets in Cancer, for instance, and by the way, in tropical astrology, the full moon is in Cancer. So you might actually be feeling this a little bit more intensely as well, just like emotionally. And like, look at this card, it's kind of like watery. There's definitely like this feeling of just being heavy and weighed down with the water. So I would say that like this is a time to maybe up your self-care. It's in tropical Cancer, but this full moon is also in Gemini, in sidereal, so depending on which one you follow, but you might feel this more intensely. So, and I would say for Cancers who have a lot of Cancer strong placements, this would be a time where you would want to really take some inventory, take a break. If you've been feeling drained from people or projects, like this full moon would be a good time to like, you know, let yourself kind of feel the fullness of the moon. And then once we move off of that full moon and go into the waning phase, really take a look at what are the things or people or projects in your life that you might need to reevaluate and kind of just like, you know, release, right? Or are there things internally like gripes or grudges or things that you're holding on to from the past that you would benefit from doing some journaling or, you know, kind of processing and talking that out, but to do some kind of release with that you know, waning moons are actually like right after that full moon into that new moon. That's a good time to do like release ceremonies, to like do like the kind of like burning with a fire type of thing, like really doing a lot of releasing of baggage and anything that's kind of weighed down and heavy. So the spiritual advice that's coming through, and by the way, hey you guys, thanks for joining. I just want to say in a couple more signs, I'm finishing up with Cancer, but I will be doing a free reading for anyone who puts it in the chat first. A free personal reading live, and then for the full moon, and then I will also be doing one at the end, so just so you know. And you can put that in the chat if you're just already know that you want that, then I can just do that for you, and so we'll do that. All right, so then we have the Five of Swords as your spiritual advice. I'm thinking this has to, like, for some of you, this might have to do a lot with like communication between you and maybe family or friends or a lover, you know, partner, whoever it is, but somebody where there is like, you know, sharp words can be exchanged. So you really want to watch yourself in your communication. Really want to make sure that you are, that you're being conscious of the way that you're communicating. Like, check yourself first. You know, we are not just Mercury retrograde, but we also have Mars retrograde in Gemini, right? And so this is kind of like, we can maybe blow up things that are small into larger things that don't need to be magnified to that level. So you really want to watch that, really take a moment to pause and ask yourself, like, is this really important? You know, would I rather be right, or would I rather foster understanding between me and another person? So having the kind of communication that needs to be had, but making sure that you're doing it in a way where you're not just like there to win at any cost, where you're not just trying to, where you're not just trying to be the one who's right? So these are things to actually pay attention, and I hope that that feels helpful for you. If you're wanting to get a little bit more information, there might be some more of this if you go check out your Cancer reading for the month of January, which is up on my channel on YouTube and on Rumble. The link for that is in my bio. So, all right, that is Cancer, and we are moving on to Leo. These are quick and short, you guys. These are not like the monthly readings, so these are going to be like really, really short and sweet. So as soon as I get through Leo and Virgo, then I will do a free personal reading for anyone who's on. So make sure that you go ahead and put in the chat that you would like that if you decide that that's what you would like. All right, so Leos, I'm feeling this card here. Hey, Happy New Year. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, and then I'm feeling like, yep, I want this deck. Okay. All right. So what spiritual advice do we have coming through for Leo? For this, I'm feeling this card here. Oh, and this card here. For this full moon into the new moon. So again, you guys, the full moon is on the 6th. I'm recording this on the 5th so that people have it on the 6th. So we're still in that waxing energy until we get to the full moon tomorrow at 4:09 Mountain Standard Time, so 3:09 Pacific, right? So just so you guys are aware. But after that, when the moon starts to like wane, this is a really good time to offload and really release and let things go, right? All right, Leo, so what we have here is fated to suffer. Very much not like a typical like Leo thing to do, is to be in a space of like, I am the victim. Not unless a Leo would be in a really shadowy kind of period, and they're experiencing like being like a really shadow side of themselves, right? But this is more like, woe is me, like everything, you know, it's just like having the belief or the perspective like, you know, or all people are selfish, or, you know, nobody wants to really help anyone out these days, or you know, or just like, why does all of this continue to happen to me? Why is everything happening to me? Like, why is everything going wrong for me? Or like, oh, I'm just fated to have a life that is full and difficult with these kinds of problems, or these kinds of people that are, you know, weighing me down, or whatever it is, right? So this is something to actually pay attention to, is, you know, are you in that space? Are you maybe having certain stories or beliefs come up in your mind where you are thinking like, either that you're the victim or that you're always in the position where it's just like, oh yeah, I guess it would be me. That's how life goes for me. Like, of course that's how it goes. Notice your words. Notice, are you someone who says that? Like, oh yeah, that would totally happen to me. Of course it would happen to me. Of course something bad would happen. Of course something, you know what I mean? Like those kinds of internal like dialogues that can happen with ourselves, right? So let's just fix this, you guys. There we go. Much better. So that's what we have for the shadow card. So spiritual advice, I was feeling 2 cards that were actually coming through, and what we have are the 4 of Laurels, and we have the Temperance card, right? That was a Temperance card, wasn't it? Yes. Or no, sorry, that's the Star. So we have the Star and we have the 4 of Laurels. Hey, how's it going? I haven't seen you in some time. I hope you're well. So what I'm going to say is, like, again, you know, just kind of coming back to this place of feeling like, oh, woe is me. Why, of course this would happen to me. This is always the case. And like those kinds of beliefs, and those kinds of lines of thinking that, you know, we can probably all fall into at some point. Like we all have beliefs somewhere inside of us that we're still kind of like working through or that pop up. And so I would say, like, in order to come into a space where there is like this rebirth and working towards, like, from the full moon, after the full moon hits, again, like we're not quite there at the time of this recording, right? But after we hit that full moon, we're moving into that new moon energy. That waiting period is such a really great time to offload so that we can come into the new moon, right? The Star energy, to me, feels very much like that fresh start, like health. It feels like healthy, clean, clear water. You know, it feels like this very fresh vibrancy. Reminds me for some reason sometimes of like a temple priestess, right? But like this kind of energy of, you know, clean, clear bill, you know, like we're starting over, right? So moving towards this particular kind of energy, moving towards like, and I would say for some of you, maybe even taking care of your health during this period of time and noticing if there are any kinds of things that you can be doing to offload, to release around what you're doing health-wise with, in particular, like with your health or with food or with things like that. I'm also seeing with like the 4 of Laurels here, we have the 4 of Laurels. Such a cool deck. So we have the 4 of Laurels, and the 4 of Laurels can be like, you know, looking for a sense of stability, like really wanting to create this sense of stability and safety, right? It can be in a shadow position, in a more shadowy kind of state. It can really be pointing to how we're becoming kind of like miserly and selfish and kind of like going inward and creating a blockage and guarding and putting up walls in that way. But when it's in a position where it's meant to be like a helpful kind of position, what I'm seeing is that this is really about like, what can you look at releasing especially with this, right? What can you look at releasing and letting go of that will allow you to come into this place where you are feeling more grounded, stable, and secure, right? The 4 of Laurels has like gotten to a place of safety and security or stability and like feels really good about that, wants to hold on to that even, like would like to just like kind of hold that space. So, but we're not like talking about that in this particular position. What we're talking about is like, what would move you towards that? Like what would move you into a direction where you feel like you're doing some healing, where you're doing some of that maybe internal work or even physical, like health focused, and you're doing that kind of taking those steps to move towards like clearing and cleaning out, but also what's going to create a sense of like grounding and stability and safety and security. Sometimes when the 4 of Laurels is in something that like a position that's meant to be helpful in a tarot reading, I kind of almost feel like this is talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Do you have your basic Maslow's hierarchy of needs taken care of? Do you have your basic needs taken care of so that you can be stable at this level and then start looking at moving to that next level, especially when we get to that new moon. So that's what I have for you, Leo, and then we are moving into Virgo. And then after Virgo, if anyone who is on and watching wants to get a free pull from me for the full moon to the new moon, then you are welcome to put a yes me or something like that in the chat so that I know, and I will, and you don't have to come on camera, just so you know, you don't have to come on camera. You can just type in that you would like to have me pull cards for you, right? So, all right, Virgos. What do I have for my Virgos? No, not quite that. All right, Virgos, and then I'm trying to figure out which cards that I want to do. Yeah, I'm going to go with these for Virgo. I'm feeling like this deck right here would be for Virgos. You do. Okay, you're it. All right, we're going to do you then. And I always forget your handle name. Pelado Motorsports. Okay, yes, we will do you. All right. So right now, Virgo, what kind of spiritual advice do we have for my Virgos? I love it. This is beautiful. Okay, great. Such a beautiful, I haven't used this deck in a minute, so I'm really loving it. So, all right, so let's take a look, Virgo, at the shadow card that's coming up for Alex. Thank you. So let's take a look at the shadow card that's coming up for Virgo. Again, Virgo sun, moon, or rising, and this is from right after we hit that full moon point, right? So full moon, the waning period from the full moon to the new moon, that's what we're looking at, is what can you look at to be releasing that would actually be helpful, that will release a lot of energy in your life, that will help you feel lighter and able to move forward. Kind of like offloading. It reminds me of the 10 of Wands. Like, what can you offload that is like heavy on your back, and get it off of your back, get it off your shoulders, so that you can really have lighter feet, more momentum, lighter energy to move forward and create what you want to create in your life. So we have the black flower fragrance. Okay, so black flower fragrance is what we have, and just like want to make sure that you guys can like see that card so you really can take a look at it. Black flower fragrance, like the thing about that is kind of like when it's kind of like when we believe in something being a certain way that isn't actually how it is. Like when we romanticize something, when we daydream or fantasize about something, where like the black flower fragrance is like you're kind of like you're treating something like a situation, a project, a friendship, like a business partnership, a lover, whatever it is, right? Like whatever the connection is or situation is, right? But like maybe you're even like wanting to buy a house or something like that, right? And so you're just kind of like fantasizing or romanticizing, and you're just like seeing it through rose-colored glasses. So it's almost like you can almost will yourself to smell the roses, but it don't smell like roses. It smells foul. And there's something not quite right about it that you're not seeing. Now, does that mean that you need to offload this project completely, or the idea of buying a house, or this business partnership with a person that you know completely, or a lover, or whatever it is? No, it doesn't mean that you need to get rid of them. Like when we're talking about doing these like releasing energy and releasing things that no longer serve us and releasing toxic things, I think that people throw the baby out with the bathwater, and they tend to be like, oh, well then I have to like get rid of this friendship completely or something like that. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to let go of a person necessarily, or a situation necessarily. It just means that you need to maybe like take off the rose-colored glasses and like look at it very matter-of-factly and look at the facts. Look at what is in front of you. Be really aware of what there is that needs to be shifted. So for instance, let's say it's between you and and there's like a project for maybe your side hustle or your business or something like that. And so there's a project that you've been working on. You've had rose-colored glasses and been like hyped up about it. Doesn't mean that you have to let that go, but you might want to really take a look at like, what are the things that I'm kind of not looking at, that I'm kind of pushing a little bit off to the side, or like sweeping under the rug, so I don't really have to pay too much attention to it because I don't really want to look at that right now, or I don't want to really like give it attention or something like that. And what can be tweaked? And can it be tweaked? You know, like, yeah, you might get to a point where you gotta go, you know what, this project just isn't working for me anymore. I've looked at it through, like, I've taken off the rose-colored glasses and I've like really examined it, and now I can see like this is just like, we need to scrap this and start over, or scrap half of this and start completely over, or start with a new team, or whatever it is. So you really want to just get real with yourself about what there is to look at. Like, it's basically just pointing to, there are things or people or situations or whatever it is in your life that could do with you actually taking a really good look at it and just being really honest with yourself about what needs to be released. Maybe only certain parts of this need to change and be like kind of released and gotten rid of, and there's a good chunk that can actually stay. So really pay attention to that. Then I think that some of this actually has to do with communication, because what we have here showing up is the Ace of Swords for your spiritual advice. So the Ace of Swords is really just like, it's about staying true to yourself and also about communication, right? So the swords have to do with our thoughts, right? Like it has to do with our beliefs, our like logical selves, right? It has to do with our communication with the written word, right? It also has to do with staying true to ourselves and like being really, really honest and making sure that the actions that we take or the words that we speak are really aligned with what we truly think and feel, like what is completely aligned, right? Sometimes, can shoot off at the mouth, trip up over our words, like everyone does this, it happens. You really want to just like in dealing with this particular situation, whatever it is, make sure that you're just being really clear. Be clear, be conscious about your communication, be aware, be present to that, and make sure that you're speaking what feels like what's true for you, what's so for you, at least at this point, like what's so for you now and what you think needs to shift or change. Have those conversations and make sure that if there are no conversations that need to be had around these things, then make sure that you're having an honest conversation with yourself, and just know that the Ace of Swords is a really beautiful, clean energy. Another way that I like to think about the Ace of Swords is like the sword is piercing through. Usually the sword is like upwards facing, right? In this deck, it's not, but it's still piercing to the center. Actually, it's interesting because this looks like it's piercing to the center of like the solar plexus or something like that. Normally it's kind of piercing up, right, through into a clear sky. And that particular kind of piercing upwards, that can be like piercing through the crown, piercing through all of our mental spaces, piercing through the crown, piercing up into our higher self, into like the clear, clean, aligned truth, right? And so this is how you can see the Ace of Swords, is like piercing through and getting clarity, getting like piercing through the fog, piercing through the mental fog or the mental scrambling that we can do, right? Especially like Virgos are ruled by Gemini, right? And Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Mercury is retrograde right now. Mars is retrograde in Gemini right now, in the tropical system, right? In the tropical, not sidereal. But yeah, Mercury is still retrograde even in sidereal. So, but this is like to say like we're ruled by Gemini, ruled by the mind, right? So, Virgo's ruled by the mind, and often, right? It's not just that, but often. And so like sometimes we can just kind of like get into these tailspins for any of us who have Mercury placements. Like I'm a Gemini rising, so I am familiar with kind of like getting into these mental spins. But this allows us to get that real clarity when we get to a place of like really staying true to ourselves and making sure that we're aligned with that. We can pierce through that fogginess or pierce through any of the mental chatter and really get to the clarity and the truth of things. Just make sure that when you are communicating, if there are conversations that need to be had, that you're having them from a place that is again, like conscious, diplomatic, that is encouraging dialogue and is encouraging understanding, bridging understanding, right? So really just coming from that place as well, like be clean in your communication as well. All right, Virgo, that's what I have for you. And then Alex, we are doing a pull for Alex. Thank you for being here. So all right, so that is for Alex. Thank you for that. And then we are actually moving on to Libra. So we're going to go from Libra through Pisces, and then at the end of Pisces, we're going to do a free reading for anyone else who happens to be on here, who's on the live. If you want me to pull personal cards for you for the full moon that we have coming up on the 6th, for the 6th through to the next new moon, right? So that's what we're looking at. All right, so we are taking a look at Libra. All right, Libra. So let's take a look at what's coming up for my Libras out there. I know a couple Libras that are dealing with a lot right now, my dad being one of them. It's like got a lot on their plate, Seems so. I'm feeling like it's one of these. Boom. Boom. Two of them. It was, oh good. I'm glad that was helpful for you. Awesome. Really cool. So, and then I think for this particular, we're going to go with this deck for my Libras. All right, Libra, what spiritual advice do we have? This is for Libra, sun, moon, or rising. And this is from the full moon to, I'm feeling two cards. You guys are just like getting 2 cards for both. So I'm feeling this is from the full moon on January 6th to the next new moon. So that lunation cycle from when the full moon starts to wane through to the new moon. I'm recording this a little bit early because I want everyone to have this available for the full moon. All right, so we're taking a look at Libras. All right, Libras, so 2 things. And again, we're looking at what needs to be looked at, what shadows or things that need to be paid attention to, where you need to like stop avoiding looking at them so that you can really clear out some energy in this next lunation cycle so that you can really move things forward once we hit that next new moon, right? So we're looking at 2 things. First of all, we have alone in the world. So feeling like really alone, feeling really isolated, feeling like you're just kind of on your own. This can be like a really incorrect perspective when it's showing up as something that is a shadow, right? Because it's good for us to feel like we can be alone in the world, and like we can handle things and we're self-sufficient, we got ourselves. This is beyond that. This is where it's like you're having this perspective or this feeling like you're alone in this world, like it's all on you. There's no one here, no one understands, no one's here to help you, right? Like that kind of internal dialogue and like those kinds of feelings that are coming through. And that, you know, of course, when it feels isolating like that, you want to start to kind of question whether that's really so, whether that perspective is really true, and look for evidence of where you're not actually isolated or doing it all alone, or where you actually are understood in some ways, at least by other people in your life, right? So, and then the other one that we have is around gilded regret, right? And so I think that you're also like taking too much focus on like while you're in the space of being like alone and feeling like really isolated and alone, that there's also this experience of feeling like, you know, like this sense of like ruminating on regret, on like having a like building almost like your own, like almost like building your own, like the energy that I get with this is like almost like building your own prison with your, oh, there we go, we're back. Okay. We were like gone for a second. So this is kind of like building your own kind of prison, like your own cage that you're caged inside of, like your own kind of regret that comes from this place of like feeling like you're lost and alone in the world, like you're isolated in this world, and like, you know, this kind of space of regret just fueling it and kind of like really rooting that in. So I'm getting the sense that some Libras out there are definitely feeling more of like that kind of depressed feeling, and I would say definitely make sure that you reach out to people, let people in to help you. Let's take a look at what your spiritual advice has to say. So first of all, we have the Death card that shows up as part of your spiritual advice, right? So the Death card showing up, like this is really about letting go, right? So this is a time where it's like you, like, and again, like this is perfect for this particular lunation cycle, right? We're looking at from right after that full moon, right? Like after that full moon all the way to the new moon. This is that time to release, to let go, to get rid of the things that no longer serve you, the habits, the, you know, projects, the whatever it is, even physical objects, like decluttering, whatever it is, right? But the Death card is about clearing out that space so that you can have a new beginning. Like you see the dawn happening in the background there, right? Like right there in the back of the card, you see the dawn, like a new day is dawning, right? So it's like when we're able to relinquish the things that we're holding so tight to, and that can be holding to ideas and perspectives, holding on to people, holding on to projects, you know, holding on too tightly to things that, or just letting them be there and fester in our lives when we need to like get the like the energy moving. And some of it needs to be cleared out, right? But like definitely with the Death card, it's saying like, it's certain things have come to an end. You need to let them come to an end, right? You need to let go and not try to hold on to those things. And that there are toxic things in your life, whether it's related to what you put in your body, to the kinds of things that you do, or the people that you talk to or hang out with, or the kind of conversations you're having, or whatever it is. But like, this is something that it would behoove you to really pay attention to. So like something is done, you need to let something be done, and you need to stop holding on to it. Don't resist it, let it go, clear out the space, and just know that you're clearing out the space so that this, like, I mean, it's really become like very cliche to say this, you know, but it's like a new day dawns, right? Or, you know, you got to clear out the old so you can make space for the new to come in. But there's a reason that that is something that is like said so often, is because there's truth to it, right? So you need to really create that space and let stuff go, get rid of the things that are no longer serving, and just let that move out. Now, we also have the Hanged Man in a position that is in a helpful position here, which I think a lot of people relate to the Hanged Man card as being someplace where they feel stuck, but this is not really about feeling stuck, right? Like, this is actually about allowing yourself to receive the wisdom from your higher self, your higher power, whatever it is that you believe in. I'm not here to dictate what people believe in. So whatever your beliefs are, that is like some higher consciousness in the world that you believe in, even if it's not like a being or a deity or anything like that. It could be energy itself, the universe itself, universal consciousness, whatever it is. But this is allowing the space for you to receive the answers that you need. So you probably have been feeling kind of like really stuck. Seems definitely like you've been feeling isolated, and there's some things that need to be let go of. And like, there's also just kind of going, okay, well, like, how do you get the answers for knowing what to do or what to release or how to move forward, how to move on, right? And so in order to, sorry, there's a chipmunk outside my window. So how to release these things, and, you know, the answers don't come when we're, you know, avoiding and escaping, or when we're just like doing, which can be another form of escaping, right? So that the answers don't come from those places. It's when we can get still within ourselves, right? When we can create a space of quiet, when we can create a space where the inspiration or the epiphanies can have space to come through. They have space to come through. And so this is the kind of advice that you're getting. So really find that time, find that space, you know, and again, you know, if this is like really, if you're really super relating to like these cards and how that really feels, I would say, make sure that you reach out to people in your life. Make sure that you take the time to, like, you're not a burden to people, right? So make sure that you reach out and connect. You know, you're not alone in this world. There are plenty of people who do care. And if you feel isolated and you need to like hop online to connect with people, then find people online, you know? Like, if you live in a remote area and there's no one nearby in person, hop on a phone call or get online and connect with someone or whatever it is. But just know that you're not alone. So make sure that you question this perspective, right? Yes, you can absolutely ask me something when I finish the reading, Alex. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so that's what we have for that there. So that is our Libras. Now we're moving into Scorpio. And again, these are short readings, so I'm just going to be blazing through them. So we have Scorpio. So we're moving into Scorpio. Scorpio, what do we have going on for you? Oh, that's interesting. I just had one Scorpio that, man, Lisa's childhood that just popped into my head. So that's interesting. So Scorpios, Sun, Moon, or Rising. What is it that you need to look at for this next lunation from right after that full moon, when we move into a waning moon, into the new moon? What needs to be looked at? I'm feeling, oh, no. Yep, that's this card. Okay, cool. All right, interesting. And then I feel for my Scorpios, I'm feeling this deck here. Okay. And then what's some spiritual advice that we have for our Scorpios? All right. So I'm actually feeling like, oh no, that's not quite it. I was about to, but I was like, no, so keep going. All right, so I'll keep going. All right, interesting. All right, so, and also apropos for a waning moon lunation. So what we have for the shadow card for my Scorpios is the child I was meant to be, right? And the energy of this is very much like, it can be about kind of regret and about this longing kind of nostalgia for the way that something used to be, the way that we used to feel, the way our life used to be, for times past, for like maybe looking at your life right now and saying like, it's not like, it shouldn't have turned out this way. I should have had this kind of life. I should have been living this kind of life, or been with this kind of partner, or taken this kind of path, like the life I should have had, right? So, and oftentimes I think that this has to do with like our, you know, in the term inner child is really overused, but it's, you know, there's truth to it. We have like these inner children, our inner selves that are our youthful younger selves, and sometimes like in the course of adulting they can get suppressed and like kind of squashed down. And so this is really just like about like, there might be an aspect to your childlike happiness and the life you envisioned for yourself, like who you were supposed to be is not who you are, right? And kind of like questioning that around, maybe even around your self-worth or just your path in general. But like there's something to this kind of like longing for it to be different than it is, and it was supposed to be this other way, right? So that's why I say that it can like have to do with like this feeling of like regret. And that's, you know, I think that a lot of us have experienced that at one time or another, at least once in our lives, right? Depending on how old or young you are. But I've definitely experienced feelings like that, you know? So that's kind of more like, again, like this particular deck is really showing what kinds of beliefs or perspectives that we have that we experience that are probably even like in the back of our minds, or just kind of like low key somewhere inside of us that we don't really pay attention to, that we kind of like I don't need to deal with that now, or I don't have time to process that, or I don't have time to look at that, or I don't want to look at that, right? And this is kind of saying like, hey, if you were to look at this and do some work around like releasing these kinds of beliefs and perspectives, you could really kind of catapult yourself forward when we get to that next new moon and have cleared out that energy. And the reason why I say that your spiritual advice that's coming through with the Four of Swords is really appropriate for this time is because during the waning moon, it is a good time to kind of like, you know, chill and like get into a sense of like mellowness, rest, rejuvenate, right? When we get into a space of solitude and quiet ourselves, and I was just talking about this for the previous sign, right? Is like we can really experience a sense of peace and calm that allows the epiphanies to come through, that allows the new ideas to come through, and that allows us time to really process this, right? And that doesn't mean like you have to be like laying down like, you know, like this person is in the card, right? This can actually be about like maybe going for a walk. Like sometimes that for me is a way for me to process things when I'm just kind of moving rhythmically, or when I'm driving, right? Like a long drive or something like that. But like walking is a really good way for me, at least. Or just laying on my bed and having like some kind of ambient music in the background, just kind of like chilling and letting myself process and think these things through. So ask yourself the question is like, if this is part of what is coming up for you, and you have this kind of like feeling like, oh, I should have been here, or like my life should have turned out this way, or this is the way it was supposed to be, and like, well, here we are now, right? This is where we are now. And so I would question the idea that it was supposed to be a different way, because if it were, then it would be different, and here you are. And so, you know, when we lose against reality, we lose 100% of the time, as Byron Katie says, and like this is where you are now. But you can start again, right? So you can start to kind of clear out this idea that you were supposed to be somewhere, that you're not where you're supposed to be, it's not how it's supposed to be. And like, okay, well, if this isn't how you want it to be, the contrast of what you don't want shows you clearly what you do want. So here you have the opportunity to actually look at like, how do I want this to be? Like, how do I want to now create my life? Like, how can I start to move towards the life that I am still wanting, right? Because if you're sitting here kind of going like, my life should have been this way, it should have turned out that way, we tend to kind of say like, oh, well, because I am, you know, let's say I'm not, but let's say that you're just like, oh, because I'm married with kids, like this is the way my, like, you know, I'm stuck here, I can't change my world, I can't move towards the things in my life that I wanted for myself, or whatever it is, right? But that's not true. You can actually start to bring in more and more of the kinds of things that make you feel the way that you want your life to feel. So I hope that that makes sense for you. Like really take some time to kind of go inward, make sure that you get some like rest, rejuvenate. And I'm just going to turn on a light here because like I'm losing light. It just got really cloudy. Oh no, my ring light is not on. Right there. There we go. just so we have a little bit of extra light. All right, so that's what I have for you, Scorpio. I hope that makes sense. You know, really just take some time and question those particular beliefs, right? All right, Scorpio, so we're done with you. I hope that's helpful. And then we're moving into, by the way, Scorpio, that's actually going to be really helpful to move you into this next, you know, new moon, right? So, all right, let's now move on to Sagittarius. All right, so Sagittarius, what do we have from a Saggies? What is going on for you guys? What are you not looking at? People with really strong Sagittarian placements, right? Or like sometimes even with the Jupiter placements, can sometimes, you know, like tend to be like, let's just look at what's fun and optimistic and, you know, blah, 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 and not really want to look at some of the, you know, would rather spend your time enjoying life than dealing with like the ish, you know? So, and then let's actually do, which deck do I want to do for my Saggies? I'm going to do this one. All right. So, Sag, spiritual advice that's coming through for Sag. Okay. Oh, it's 2. Okay. So we have 2 cards. We have the Page of Pentacles and we have the 8 of Wands. So Page of Pentacles and 8 of Wands. I think I am going to need more light, you guys. So I don't want to, that is so bright to me, but I don't know. Some light better than no light. I'm eventually going to get a soft box where I won't have such a harsh light for these situations, because it's winter where I am, and sometimes it just decides that it wants to get dark. All right, so for my Saggies, Jim Morrison was a Sag. Oh, that's right, Jim Morrison was a Sag. So for my Sag, this is the 3rd time that this card has actually come up today. So for my Sag Sun, Sag Rising, or Sag Moon, we can take a look at this for this next lunation cycle from the full moon, like right after that full moon on the 6th, when the moon starts to wane and goes from full to new. That particular period, it's like what needs to be looked at, what needs to be cleared out, what needs your attention that can be worked with and released during this next lunation cycle that we're about to move into, right? So, and what we have is Peace Amongst the Thorns. So this has actually shown up a couple of times today. I find it really interesting. So I think this is probably a theme that some people are dealing with, and you know, like, again, because like if you're using the timestamps and you're here, then I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I need to, because I'm not expecting you to go back and watch where it's showed up before. So basically, you know, the Peace Amongst the Thorns is like, while it can be helpful to be in a state of being where you're able to navigate life's ups and downs and be in a state of acceptance and flow and find your center and be able to be like find your anchor and meditate and be present and be grounded, and also to be able to like to move like water and like, or be like bamboo, right, and bend and allow for things to like move through your life. There is a time for that, and then there's a time for taking action and dealing with the things in your life that need to be dealt with. You can't stay in meditation land all day long. You can't stay in yoga land all day long, or work out all day long, or whatever it is, whatever your form of how you find that is. You can't stay in a sense of like detached or spirituality and just like be in those realms all the time and not deal with the world of the mundane. So there are certain things in your world, in your mundane world, that are calling you forward to deal with, right? There's certain things that need to be dealt with. And so you want to make sure that you're actually paying attention to these things in your life, whether that's bills or taxes or conversations that need to be had, or if there are friendships or people in your life that are like where you've just been accepting maybe toxic behavior, or a way of being that they've been with you that has not been, that hasn't been kind or isn't in alignment with you anymore. And you've kind of just been, it's like, this card reminds me of just like putting up with shit. Like, there is a time to be able to like, there is a strength in being able to navigate the world and to be able to sit with and be with the feelings of discomfort. And I find that is a very powerful thing to do. But there comes a point where you're hiding or escaping or just not, like straight up not dealing, right, with the things that need to be dealt with. And so there are probably things or habits or people that are toxic in your world that you need to remove and that you need to clear out, or that you need to have clearing conversations with people to clear things up and clear them out. Or maybe there's like a habit, right? Maybe there's you're overdoing it with certain things in your life that you need to like take a step back from and kind of go like, this is actually hurting me, and I'm finding peace in toxic ways, or in the midst of toxicity, I'm putting up with it. I am accepting it to a degree that's unhealthy, right? Because acceptance can be really beautiful, but sometimes when you're like accepting to the point of toxicity, you could be becoming like a doormat, or you could just be accepting situations in your life that are actually harming you and that you need to like move them along, right? So that's all I'm going to say about that. And then we move into your spiritual advice, right? So when we have the Page of Pentacles, like one of the things that I love about the Page of Pentacles is like there are certain opportunities that are showing up that are on the horizon, right? And like there is like, it reminds me of, you know, the earth sign, the pentacles are like about what's grounded, about what's tangible, about what is strategic, about how we can move forward, and about finding the solutions that are at our fingertips. Now that it's in like this position of spiritual advice, I'm going to say like the assistance that you're getting is that there are either opportunities or people that are in your life or that are helpful that you can like turn to help you with these things, or that there's also this kind of like you have everything that you need to be able to do the personal work to navigate through this. Like you already have the information at your fingertips, like you have the solutions at your fingertips, you have the like the spiritual growth tools that you already have to be able to work with this in your life. And so, you know, this is really just about implementing and using the solutions that are at your fingertips that you already have available to you. This card can mean a lot of other things, but that's like what's coming through for me with this particular reading here, right? The other spiritual advice that we have is the Eight of Wands. And this is about like, it's time to move. It's time to go. This is the green light. This is like all green lights. Like if you were driving and you just got all green lights for like days, green lights for days, right? So this is forward moving energy. This is really beautiful, fast, swift moving energy. And also really like, yeah, just like this is time to move forward. This is time to like go and move your projects forward, do whatever it is that you're going to do to move forward. So again, like this can be a space where you kind of get stuck in complacency, or again, like just being with and sitting with, and there's no like actual action and moving things through. And this is like very swift moving things, like movement is happening. So like take that energy and really utilize it to move things through. Use the kind of tools that you already have at your fingertips to work with in this next lunation cycle. So I hope that that was helpful for you, Sagittarius. And then we're moving on to our Capricorns. So we have Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. And then as soon as we're done with Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces, I'm just going to move my leg here, you guys. Sitting for so long, it can get to be a lot. So Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. And as soon as we're done with those, if there's anybody who's here in the live that wants to have a personal one-to-one reading at the very end, we will do that. And if not, then we'll end the live there. So, all right, that's all I needed was just like a quick stretch, like a little break with that. That's my deck. I forgot like this particular, I might edit that out. This particular cloth is very sticky. It's like made out of velvet, so it sticks. All right, so make sure that I've got all my cards. All right. So we are taking a look at Capricorn. So Capricorn, sun, moon, or rising. Taking a look at like for this next lunation cycle, for the full moon to the new moon, what needs to be released, what needs to be looked at, and then what is the spiritual advice that's actually coming through for you. Now again, like at the time that I am doing this, it is we're still building up and waxing to that fullness of the moon. So right now we're in that like waxing still energy, and we're moving into that very like pregnant full moon energy, which is like really potent. But right after that new moon, when we start to move into that waning cycle, what we're looking at is like what is something to be working on, to be working with, to be releasing, because that is the time, right? And during the waning, it is time to like release and move through, right? So what we have going on here is the Triumph of Lies, right? And this particular card in this deck is really speaking to like when we have, like we wear all these different personalities or masks in the world, right? So when you are maybe in a work environment and working with peers or coworkers or collaborating with other people, you might have a certain mask on and a certain way of being and who you are. When you are at home and it's just you, or you and your partners, you have another one. When you're with you and your family, it's another one. With you and a particular set of friends, another one. With you and another set of friends, another one, right? Like, so we wear all of these different masks and different scenarios in our life. And, you know, while there's like still a sense of us that happens in all of these spaces, we also can be wearing these masks so often, changing for each environment that we're in so often, that we start to, like we forget who we really are at our core, and we start to identify with the persona that we're projecting with the mask in the world more than we are really just being our most authentic selves. So now, does it make sense? Like, obviously you're probably not going to, like, if you work at, you know, an office or something, you're not going to greet your boss or manager in the same way that you might greet your best friend with that level of familiarity, but you don't need to. It's about bringing, like, looking at where maybe you've overly identified with the masks that you wear for the benefit of other people or places or situations, and that you are not really in touch with your most authentic self. Like, you're overly identified with the mask and the persona that you project, even online, right? Like, there's a lot of people online where it's like that's what they do because they're influencers, and so they might overly identify with their persona that they project into the world, and they have lost a touch with their most authentic self, right? So that's what there is to look at here. What can you look at, and where are you doing this in your life, and how can you work with releasing that, right? And so the spiritual advice with how to release that is balance, right? You've got the Two of Laurels here, and so that really is all about balance. When we're looking at how we can, you know, because, like, again, you're not going to be a certain persona in your work environment the same way that you would with your friends, but there is a balance in how you show up and how you can be authentic, right? Because, again, you're not going to just drop your professionalism and throw that out the window, because that's not necessarily your most authentic self. It's just about the persona that you've projected, the personality that you've created, right? The image that you're portraying to people in your world. Is that really still, like, does it have any element of you that's actually still authentic? Are you overly identified with that for the benefit of work or for other people, or to not hurt other people's feelings, or whatever it is? Like, do you show up with your parents as being like more of like a saint than you actually are? And that's not to say you got to tell your parents all the things that you've done or that you're gonna do or that you're doing now, but it's more just like, how can you bring more of that authenticity into your world and do it in a balanced way, right? It doesn't mean that you are not, that you're only doing one or the other. It's just like there's a blending of the two, or there's like an ability to move between these worlds and keep your center, right? So earlier, when this card came up, I was talking about there being like your sense of balance and your center when we're actually physically balancing the world, right? We have to have like certain focal points. We need to be able to be very present and aware of our body, of the space, of like, you know, of the gravity, of all of these different things. And so this is about, you know, how can you, like, a different sense of your center, a different sense of balance, like in order to balance who you are in all of these different arenas in your life, all the different hats that you put on, the different masks that you wear, right? How can you balance your authentic self and bring more of that into the space in a very balanced way? And usually the way that we can do that, right, is from a more grounded and centered and present place. Like, we have to build a sense of awareness about who we are as people, and we have to just bring an awareness of like the world around us, the situation, like who we are as people, how we feel authentically inside, that grounded, centered, anchored place within ourselves, and really like come from that place and start to like, because that doesn't mean it's going to change your ability to be professional or to be like, you know, loose with your friends and however you are with your friends. This is just about you being able to bring more of the pieces of yourself together in an authentic way so that you're not so fragmented in your life, you know, so that you're not so fragmented. So that's what I've got for you, Capricorn. We're on our last two, so we're down to Aquarius and Pisces. So, all right. Aquarius, what do we have going on for you for this lunation cycle? Aquarius, sun, moon, or rising for just after the full moon on January 6th through to the new moon later this month. What do we have going on for you? Which deck do I want to use for my Aquarians? Feeling this deck here. Okay. All right, so, okay, actually no, sorry about that. I'm feeling this deck here, like it kept on telling me. So, all right, Aquarius, what do we have for the spiritual advice that's coming through? Feeling like it was like this card here. Boom. Interesting. Cool. All right. So, Aquarius, what we have showing up for the kind of like that shadow card that there is to look at is we have anger and chains here. So, and I think this one is pretty straightforward. It's just like there, you know, often we have these places where our resentments or our anger are tied up in, you know, and we chain ourselves to these things. We create like heavier loads for ourselves energetically and emotionally because we're not relinquishing those things, and because we're not resolving the anger, we become chained to those, and they almost become like places where our energy gets siphoned off, right? Where it's like we have a chain to this piece of anger over here about like with this person, or we're angry about this situation and we're chained like there because we're so righteous in our anger and we're not dealing with the anger that we have and not processing it and releasing it. And because we're not releasing it, we're chained to it. And so there's an amount of our mental and emotional energy that gets like siphoned out, and that gets like it just gets used up. Like we get drained by these experiences. Have you ever noticed when you actually just deal with something that you thought was going to take a lot more energy, or that you're just like, oh, I don't want to deal with that. That's going to be a long conversation, or that's going to like, it's going to take up a lot of my time or my energy, and I just don't have time or energy for that right now, blah, 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 blah. But the moment that you actually deal with the situation, often it's not as bad. Sometimes maybe, but it's not as bad as you thought it was going to be. But either way, once you have done that and you have like completed that, and you've completed that loop, or that like finished out that cycle, it releases all of this energy, and now you have access to all of this energy so that you can, you know, and you realize like, oh my gosh, like I feel so much lighter than I felt in, you know, before, right? I think we've all had experiences like that. So this is talking about like being chained to anger that hasn't been dealt with, and that there are things, either conversations or past gripes or whatever it is, but there are places where you need to look at that you know that you have anger about certain things or people or whatever, and that there's something there to deal with and to clear out. You're right, to release and to let go, to release that anger. And so sometimes to release that anger, we can't actually release it with a particular person. Maybe they're not willing to have a conversation, or they don't know how to have conscious conversations, and so then it's up to us to process that on our own, to process that privately with ourselves, right? So, you know, this might be something that you need to do processing around on your own through journaling, or through maybe processing it with like a coach or a best friend or something like that, right? So just whatever you need to do to really process this anger out. And then we have with that the 9 of Swords, right? And it's like you got to stop worrying about this, you know, like you got to stop letting this be drained, right? The 9 of Swords is like, anxiety and like wakes you up at night, or just like interferes, or just like pops into your mind. It takes up a lot of like emotional and mental and energy, right? Just like all of that takes up all of those resources from us. So it's very much in line with what's going on here. And your spiritual advice is just like, hey, you gotta like really pay attention to this because it's draining you. And so I feel like this is very congruent. It's just like very straightforward, straight up. It's like, hey, deal with these situations. You can't ignore them, because if you do, then it's going to continue to weigh you down in these ways. And if you really want to start like moving forward in your life and feel like you're getting the traction and motivation to like get to that next level, or to move forward in your life, to build momentum, then this is actually what's being pointed at that needs to be released. And the perfect time to do this, and that's why I started doing these, like I'm starting to do these full moon and new moon readings, is because during like from the full moon after it starts waning, right after the full moon, after it starts waning to that new moon, that's when that waning energy is a really good time to just release and let things go. And so this is the perfect time to actually deal with these things, right? So that's what I've got for you, Aquarius. And then we are down to our last one. We're down to Pisces. So last one, Pisces. All right, so Pisces, what do I have for you for this next lunation cycle? All right. So I'm feeling this one here. Interesting. Okay. And for my Pisces, actually feeling this deck here. So, spiritual advice for my Pisces. Look at that card. Just flipped itself right on over. Very cool. Actually, these two cards came up for two completely different signs earlier, Pisces. So, Pisces sun, rising, or moon sign, and this is from right after the full moon, when the moon starts to wane. So from the full moon waning to the new moon for that lunation cycle, right? That's what we're looking at here. And so what we have is forgetting oneself, right? This actually came up for a reading earlier in today. Today. And this is really just about like how we can actually lose sight of ourselves, and we can lose ourselves in other people, or we can escape to the point where we're not like really in touch with ourselves anymore, right? That's one way that we can look at it. Wow, my knee is just really, sorry you guys, I'm gonna have to switch positions here for a moment. This is how I'm gonna have to read. So this can be about like forgetting oneself. Now, if you have really strong 12th house or Pisces placements, or even Neptunian placements, like this can really feel like it resonates even more for you, right? But without looking at your natal chart and being that this is like a collective reading, it's hard for us to say, right? So if this resonates, it resonates. But, you know, the shadow side that can happen with people with those kinds of placements is that there can be this like losing all sense of oneself, because there's such a desire to merge. There's such a desire to be like connected and to be in oneness. And for some people, the way that looks is that they like to do like meditation to the point of like feeling like they're in this blissful, all connected oneness state, and they like to hang out there, which can be really beautiful. And it also can be a sense of escape if we take it too far, right? Anything can, like, again, with plant, you know, with like herbalism and plant medicine, we see this, which is like any kind of medicine that is like, that's really great for us, taken too much or too far, can actually turn into a toxin for us, can turn into a poison. And anything that's poison, like a, you know, maybe like a poisonous mushroom in the woods, right, can be actually a little bit of that extracted from that could actually be turned into something medicinal for us, right? So everything has its part, but this is more talking about the shadow aspect and really just kind of merging to the point of forgetting yourself, right? So in which ways might you be escaping? And like, here's the thing too, with somebody who has really strong Pisces placements, you might tend to feel like the world is too much and it's just like overwhelming, and it's like the only way that you know how to get a break from that is to escape and to check out of life. And I want to say that checking out is absolutely okay. You are allowed to do that. I know that there's a lot of stigma and judgment around like escapism and checking out, or like escaping the world. But again, like a little bit of something that can be toxic can actually be something really medicinal for some people, right? And so this is something where I would say, not for all of the different signs, but for you guys specifically, I would say taking some time to, whatever it is, go like, the world doesn't exist for the next half an hour. I'm going to go out into nature, or I'm going to meditate, or I'm going to like, you know, listen to music while I stare at my ceiling, or I'm going to, you know, just be in a space where you get to like, just go, the world doesn't exist. My responsibilities don't exist for the next like half an hour, right? And just like allowing yourself to have that sense, this place of openness, so that you can connect back to yourself, connect back to your authentic self. And remember, like, the desire there is to want to kind of like blur the lines and to, you know, merge with people, or to merge with like the world. And so not really knowing where you end and other people begin. And that can be not only with your personality and who you are as a person, but that can also be with like, you know, with boundaries around emotions. You know, like you might be someone who's really so attuned and sensitive and can feel other people's states of being, their energetic states of being and their emotions. And so you might become overly identified with them and like get too much into their feels, and really just forgetting like who you are, and not having a clear enough boundary so that there's like a differentiation between yourself and the world, or yourself and others. And so this is really about really paying attention to it from this perspective, right? So you know, for like earlier when this card came up, it was a totally different kind of like meaning, similar but different. But for a Pisces, I would say like this is kind of remembering to like, there needs to be a differentiation between yourself and others, and yourself and the world, and not to forget yourself or lose yourself in being, when you're being empathetic or sensitive or supportive to other people in your life. Remembering this, right? So that's what I would say. And then the I would say the spiritual advice, we have the Ace of Swords that is showing up, right? So Ace of Swords is really coming to a place of that kind of clarity. And I feel it goes very well with this particular card, because with the Ace of Swords, we have the swords being pointing to staying true to ourselves, being true to what we, and honoring what is so for us, right? And that can change. Like your, you know, ultimate truth is unchanging. Personal truths are true for a period of time, but they can change, right? And so for now though, not losing yourself in what other people feel is like true for them and right for them, but finding like going inward, taking some time out to like get in touch with yourself and really realize what is true for you, right? What feels what feels right for you in your life, and not confusing that with other people's. Also, this is about getting a sense of like clear, like this is clear mind, clear thoughts, right? This is moving sometimes into a more logical state. So it might be helpful for you to inject, not to step away from your emotions completely, but to inject, to bring in some logic, and not just be in the world of sensory, you know, like the sensory perceptions or your feelings, and to actually inject some logic and some very kind of like raw, real thinking about like factual thinking about the world, so that you can get the kind of clarity that you need. So I would say taking that time to get in touch with your, like, what's true for you, what's so for you, what do you actually think, and getting that kind of clarity. The Ace of Swords is really piercing through like these chakras and moving up into like these upper ethers, and like really getting connected to and piercing through any of the fogginess or the murkiness, which can definitely happen. Pisces is ruled by Neptune, and so that can feel like sometimes very murky waters, like it's kind of difficult to feel which way is like up or down or sideways, and so that can become a little bit like blurred and confused. So this is really about piercing through that into a place of clarity and getting really aligned and knowing for yourself what's so. And if there are things that need to be communicated, maybe boundaries, if there are things that need to be communicated, then this is what there is to communicate, right? So that's what I have for you, Pisces. I hope that that was really helpful for you. It's interesting. So let me know how you guys like this series. I'm going to be probably making tweaks and changes based on any feedback that I get. So I'll be doing these for the full moons and new moons besides the monthly readings. By the way, the monthly readings are up on my YouTube and Rumble. So you can go look at your January reading for your sign, for Sun, Moon, or Rising. And yeah, that's what I got for you. I want to keep this short and sweet. If you resonated with this and you're watching this on YouTube or on Rumble, then please give it a like. Definitely helps out. Subscribe so you can see when these are coming out. I'm going to be doing live streaming on YouTube on that platform as well sometime soon. That's what I got for you guys right now. So I will see if I can link the playlist at the end of this. And then Alex, you said that you wanted to ask me a question. So let's go ahead and move off of the live, and I can move that into, we can chat outside of that. All right, you guys, that's what I've got for you. I hope that you enjoyed this, and I will talk to you guys soon. All right, bye.